See, I heard one of your sponsors is harm reduction, and it just triggered a memory for me. And I'm a massive proponent of harm reduction, and I think that we should be having more mature conversations about this. Because down here in Australia, I don't know what it's like up there, but so many people down here who claim to be sensible and logical, as soon as you talk about harm minimization, they get very illogical and nonsensical because we're not mature enough to have these conversations. I remember not long after I started my centre, because I was in the sort of the major newspaper down here in Melbourne, and I was getting some calls from the other states, on advice. And up in Sydney, they had a big GHB, a batch of it coming out. That there's different chemical derivatives, but they're having a big problem with it basically. And so a reporter from their main paper called me and said, what advice do you have? Because I was very educated on GHB, and I spent about 25 minutes talking to them about exactly what the different chemicals are, how people can not overdose on it by knowing this particular batch, how long they should, all this stuff around harm minimization.
Yeah.
And then the paper came out a week later. They had nothing in there from me, and they had the police constable saying, if you have GHB, flush it down the toilet. And I'm like, for God's sake, do you think people are going to just flush their drugs around the toilet?
The dumbest thing,
because they read about...
The dumbest thing you can say to a person who's using drugs is don't do drugs.
There's been many studies done on drug education in schools, and when we use these fear tactics of don't do drugs, they'll fry your brain, it has either no effect or a slightly inverse effect of what it's trying to have, which means people are more likely to do drugs. It's like, how long do we have to have this approach to realize it's crazy?
It didn't help. It didn't stop me at all. Like, I couldn't wait. I could not wait.
I was like, oh, this must be great. They're warning me about it.
It's so good it's illegal.
Well, what happens though, you get told all these things about how bad they are, and they'll do this to you and do that to you. And so you have that information in the back of your mind. And then I remember going out and taking my first ecstasy tablet. And as soon as I took it, I'm like, oh, that was all full of shit, that drug education. That was absolute rubbish. This is literally the best.
Yeah.
But what even though, let's say 70% of their information was actually good and it was about harm reduction, I've thrown that out too, because the other fear stuff has led me to believe that it's all bullshit. So I think we should be having more mature conversations, especially with our children around drugs. But that's my little rant on that. Drew, talk about our program.
Yes. Yeah. We'll just go all to Drew now there. Take us home, Drew.
Take us home. Lie in the sand is the culmination of 18 months work with myself, with Matt, with Ryan, to create and curate, in my humble opinion, one of the most transformative and sustainable addiction recovery platforms that exists. We really wanted to cater to the full spectrum of addiction.